For 23 long years, I stood by Amy, the woman I vowed to love and cherish through every triumph and failure. We built our life together, enduring the highs and lows that only two people bound by marriage can truly understand. In those 2 decades, we created a family, raising 3 children: Rachel, our strong-willed daughter now 22, Jake, our 19-year-old son struggling to navigate the complexities of adulthood, and Ava, our youngest at 17, still finding her place in the world. Amy was my world, the woman I thought would be by my side forever, sharing the joys and sorrows of life. Yet, all of that came crashing down one fateful evening when Amy confessed the unthinkable. She had been unfaithful for 2 years with a younger man, Matt, a coworker of hers. The confession hit me like a freight train. The very foundation of my world, the marriage I had poured my heart into, was shattered in an instant. How could the woman I loved for over 2 decades betray me in such a callous, heartless manner? The hurt, the shock, the absolute devastation all consumed me in a flood of emotions. I never imagined this day would come, not after everything we had been through, not after building a life, a family together. Amy's revelation felt like a cruel betrayal. And as if that wasn't enough, she was not even apologetic. She simply wanted to move on, to pursue a relationship with Matt, completely disregarding the family and the life we had worked so hard to create. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had devoted myself to, had vanished in a moment of selfishness, leaving me to pick up the pieces of my broken heart and shattered reality. It was a quiet evening, a moment I had no idea would alter the course of my life forever. Amy, my wife of 23 years, sat across from me, her eyes filled with a mixture of guilt and relief. Her hands trembled as she slowly uttered the words that would unravel everything I thought I knew about our marriage. "I've been seeing Matt," she confessed, her voice barely a whisper. Matt, her 27-year-old coworker, had been the one who had captured her heart. For 2 years behind my back, she had shared her body, her time, her emotions with him, all while I was blissfully unaware, committed to the life we built together. As the words sank in, the room felt suffocating. The woman I had loved, raised children with, and weathered so many storms beside, had betrayed me in the most agonizing way possible. 2 years, that's how long she'd been living a double life. The reality of it crushed me. Amy, sensing my shock and anger, explained that she had kept the affair hidden for so long because of our children. With Rachel now an adult, and Jake and Ava not far behind, she claimed that it was finally the right time to be honest, as if the years of deceit could be excused by some twisted sense of timing. But as she spoke, her words felt hollow. She wasn't apologizing. There was no regret in her eyes. She wasn't looking for forgiveness. She'd already made her choice. Matt had become her priority, and I was no longer a part of the equation. My mind raced, questioning everything, the moments we had shared, the life we had built. How could she have done this to us? How could she betray me like this after everything we'd been through? The truth felt like a devastating blow, and I was left to pick up the shattered pieces of my once perfect life. The weight of Amy's confession hit me like a tidal wave. My world, the life I had so carefully built for over 2 decades, was crumbling in front of me. For a moment, I was frozen, speechless, breathless, unsure of what to do next. The woman I trusted, the mother of my children, had betrayed me in the most unimaginable way. I stared at her, my mind in complete chaos, as I tried to comprehend the magnitude of her actions. Desperation overtook me, and without thinking, I reached out to her. "Please, Amy, don't leave me. Please, let's fix this," I begged, my voice cracking with raw emotion. I could feel my heart breaking in real time, but a part of me still clung to the hope that this was something we could overcome. After everything, after 23 years of marriage, could we not salvage something? Could we not repair the bond we had once shared? The thought of losing her, of losing our family, was more than I could bear. But as the seconds passed, clarity began to cut through the haze of shock. I stood up slowly, my mind now taking control over the emotional chaos. "No," I muttered to myself, the anger and hurt simmering beneath my words. You need to leave." The decision to ask her to go was not easy, but it was the only thing that made sense. The betrayal had been too deep, too cruel. How could I ever look at her the same way again? How could I trust her after everything? Amy, stunned by my sudden shift, didn't move at first. The silence between us was deafening, as if the walls of our home had turned cold, uninviting. "Please leave," I repeated, my voice firmer now, no longer pleading. And as she walked out of the door, I was left standing in the ruins of my marriage, a man who had lost everything he once held dear. The days after Amy left were a blur of pain and disbelief. I felt as though I were drowning in a sea of emotion, anger, betrayal, heartbreak, all crashing over me at once. It wasn't just the loss of my wife, the woman I had built a life with for 23 years, but the shattering of everything I had known. The house felt hollow without her, and I was consumed by a deep, aching loneliness that seemed unbearable. But in the midst of the storm, there was a glimmer of light. Ava, my youngest daughter, who had always been so full of life, suddenly became my anchor. At only 18, she wasn't supposed to have to shoulder this kind of burden, but she did. She sat with me through the endless nights of silence, holding my hand when I couldn't find the words to speak. She comforted me when the weight of everything became too much to bear. Ava, with her quiet strength, became the lifeline I didn't know I needed. Then, as if the universe was trying to offer me some sort of reprieve, my brother Tom moved in with us. He could see the toll the situation was taking on me, on all of us. His presence, though unexpected, was a lifeline. He took over some of the responsibilities at home, helping with the kids and keeping the household afloat when I was too broken to function. Tom became my support, my sounding board, even as we both tried to make sense of the wreckage. It was a strange comfort, having family close, though the pain was still fresh. But with each passing day, I found a little more strength, fueled by Ava's unwavering support and Tom's unexpected assistance. A week after Amy left, the phone rang in the middle of the night, breaking the silence that had settled over the house. My heart sank as I recognized her name on the caller ID. I braced myself for what I knew was coming, but nothing could have prepared me for the sobbing voice on the other end. Amy was crying uncontrollably, her words barely coherent, but I could hear the desperation in her voice. She told me that Matt, the man she had cheated on me with for 2 years, had rejected her. He had used her, promised her the world, only to toss her aside when she needed him the most. "I don't have anywhere to go," Amy's voice cracked, her breath hitching between sobs. "I'm lost. I need you. Please take me back." It was the sound of a woman who had finally realized the gravity of her mistakes, but I felt no sympathy for her. All the pain she had caused me, the betrayal that had shattered my world, suddenly felt even more cruel. Her pleas echoed through my mind, but I couldn't bring myself to offer any comfort. The man she had chosen over our family, over our 23 years together, had discarded her when it suited him. She was now left with nothing but her own regrets. And yet, she still had the audacity to ask me for forgiveness. I felt my anger rise, the memories of everything I'd endured because of her affair flooding my thoughts. "I'm sorry," I said, my voice cold and firm, "but you made your choice. This is your consequence." I hung up, my heart heavy but resolute. Amy had made her bed, and now she would have to lie in it. There was no turning back. I couldn't believe it. After everything, after the lies, the betrayal, the 2 years of hiding her affair with Matt, Amy still thought she could just waltz back into my life as if nothing had happened. She had made her bed, and now she was begging me to let her back in, claiming that she had learned her lesson. But I saw through it all. Her manipulation, her gaslighting, the way she twisted everything to make me feel like I was the one at fault, still lingered in my mind like a poison. She had told me over and over that I was the problem, that I didn't give her what she needed, that she felt neglected, but none of that mattered now. All I could hear were the lies she had fed me for years, the way she'd made me question my own sanity, even as she was having an affair right under my nose. It felt like a sick joke that she was now asking for forgiveness, as if my pain could be erased with a few desperate words. My anger boiled over, and I knew I couldn't let her back in. No matter how much she cried, no matter how many promises she made, I couldn't forget the emotional toll her betrayal had taken on me. And I couldn't forgive her for the way she had played me, manipulated me into thinking that I was the problem all along. "I'm sorry, Amy, but it's too late," I said, my voice cold and unforgiving. "You've burned your bridges, and I'm not going to let you back into my life, not after everything you've done." The silence on the other end of the line was deafening. She begged again, but I refused to listen. There was no second chance. There couldn't be. The moment I filed for divorce, I knew it wasn't just the end of a marriage, it was the start of a bitter, draining battle that I wasn't ready for. Amy, in her usual manipulative way, tried to twist the situation to make me the villain. She reached out constantly, sending texts, emails, even calling, trying to get me to feel guilty for wanting to end things after 23 years. She painted herself as the victim, crying that I was ruining the family, that I was destroying our children's lives, and that I was the one abandoning everything we built. I couldn't believe it. After everything she had done, the lies, the affair, the emotional manipulation, she had the audacity to make me feel like I was the one at fault. But it wasn't working. I was resolute. I had made my decision. I wasn't going to let her rewrite the story and make me feel like I owed her something. The hurt she caused me, the trust she shattered, were far too deep for any of her pleas to reach me. But she didn't stop there. She tried every tactic in the book to get me to second-guess myself. From emotional blackmail to guilt-tripping me about our kids, Rachel, Jake, and Ava, she knew exactly what strings to pull. She'd beg, tell me how hard this was for her, and how she felt like a failure as a mother. But what she failed to see was that I wasn't buying it anymore. I had already made up my mind. No amount of guilt would change that. The divorce was inevitable, and I was ready to fight for it for myself and for my children's future. Amy's life after the affair took a dramatic turn. Once the truth about her betrayal became public, the backlash was unforgiving. Matt, the young coworker she'd cheated with, was quick to distance himself, his actions revealing the fleeting nature of their so-called love. He had no intention of dealing with the consequences of his involvement in her deceit. Her colleagues, too, turned on her, gossiping behind her back, cutting off any semblance of respect they once had for her. Amy, who had once been admired for her charm and professionalism, was now a pariah in her own workplace. The shame was unbearable, and yet she wasn't ready to accept the consequences of her actions. Instead of owning up to her mistakes, Amy continued to spiral, desperately trying to manipulate the narrative. She still tried to gaslight me, turning the blame back onto me as if I was the one who had caused all this chaos. She claimed she was misunderstood, that the affair was a mistake, that she was unhappy in our marriage and needed something to fill the void. But none of that made sense anymore. The affair had been a choice, not a mistake. She had made it clear through her actions that I was no longer her priority. Despite her efforts to manipulate me into taking her back, or even feeling sorry for her, the reality was undeniable. Amy had destroyed our marriage, and there was no coming back from it. The public shaming she faced mirrored the fallout in her personal life, as the friends and family who once supported her now watched and discussed. Yet she refused to take responsibility, continuing her attempts to manipulate and twist the truth to salvage what was left of her dignity. But I was done. The aftermath of Amy's betrayal left me shattered, but I wasn't alone. My children Rachel, Jake, and Ava became my anchor in the storm. Rachel, my oldest, was a rock, providing steady support, while Jake, though more reserved, showed his care in small, meaningful gestures. Ava, still young, struggled to comprehend the chaos around her, but her innocent love and need for reassurance helped ground me during the darkest times. Together, we tried to rebuild what Amy had torn apart. Despite the confusion and sadness, they were the constant reminder of what truly mattered. My brother, who had always been a quiet presence in my life, moved in with us after the divorce proceedings began. His support was invaluable. He didn't ask questions about the mess I was in or judge the mistakes I had made. Instead, he gave me space to process the emotions and grief that I had tried to suppress. We spent hours talking late into the night, reminiscing about the past and facing the reality of what lay ahead. His calm presence and encouragement gave me the strength I needed to face each new day. Although the road ahead was uncertain, I could feel myself healing. Time, along with the unwavering support from my children and brother, was starting to piece me back together. My emotional state, once a tangled mess of anger, sadness, and betrayal, was slowly improving. As the final stages of the divorce approached, I knew I had to take the next step for my own well-being. Therapy was the path forward. I needed to process everything fully, to regain my sense of self, and to prepare for the future. There was no going back, but I was finally ready to move forward.